Welcome one and all to the last episode of Dragon Ball Dissection December and the last video of 2019. Thanks for ringing in the end of the year with me. The Garlic Jr. arc aired from September 18th through November 20th, 1991. In regards to the manga, that corresponds to Goku fighting number 19 and number 16 being activated. In it, Garlic Jr. escapes his prison in the Dead Zone and seeks revenge against the people of Earth by deploying the Aqua Mist to forcefully enlist everyone into his demonic army. The effects are permanent within 24 hours, so Gohan and Kuririn have to make their way to the Heavenly Realm and deploy the Cho Shinsui to restore everyone while also contending with Garlic and his minions, who have taken God captive. Yep, good old Garlic Jr. Amazing he came back into the series after such a long absence. Oh? You've seen the entirety of both Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z? And you've never heard of Garlic Jr.? He's not in any other episodes? That's weird. Animated Dragon Ball filling in time gaps is nothing new. When Goku undertakes various training, the animated series is there to show what it looks like. When Goku and Chi-Chi fly off to be married, new episodes fill in all the details. The Garlic Jr. arc, however, takes its inspiration from nothing in the manga. By that token, you could argue that the break after the Frieza arc is unique and that it doesn't leave any real gaps to fill, any plot hooks to latch onto. Perhaps it was that feeling of being left adrift that caused the writing staff to grab hold of an existing idea. So we are treated to the rather odd decision of tying in one of the movies to the animated continuity. The first Dragon Ball Z movie would have been 2 years old at this point. The Garlic Jr. arc is not a retelling or reboot of it. It is a direct sequel, one that uses copious amounts of flashbacks from that movie in order to get its viewers up to speed. I call the decision odd because while the Z movies draw heavily from the animated continuity, the majority of them are flat out impossible to fit back into that continuity. Of the 5 that had premiered by the time this arc aired, only 2 of them didn't conflict in major ways, and even the latter one is pretty iffy. No, if there was going to be a sequel to any of the movies, it needed to be the first one. Aside from repeating beats from the Raditz fight, the only flat-out plot hole comes in Bluma, Kuririn, and the Muten Roshi already knowing who Gohan is. I'm trying to give them the benefit of the doubt, but I have no idea if avoiding continuity snarls played into their decision at all, or if they simply didn't care and we're lucky we didn't get the Tullus arc. I say that because the Garlic Jr. arc makes the very questionable decision of including Higher Dragon. Higher Dragon is a movie character, but he is not a character that debuts in movie 1. He appears in movies 3, 4, and 5. Not only is there no way movies 3 or 4 could have ever happened in the series continuity, it seems unlikely each movie could exist in the same continuity as the other. Higher Dragon is the biggest WTF in this entire story. It's bad enough that you can watch the entire series and not have the slightest idea who this Garlic Jr. is, but with Higher Dragon you can watch the entire series and even the prerequisite movie to this story, and you'd still have no idea where Gohan's pet came from. This is obviously the same Garlic Jr. from the movie. But what Higher Dragon is this? Is this the same character from one of the movies? Or is it an entirely new character? And since I'm sure I'll have a lot to talk about come the animated Cell arc, I might as well get this out of the way now. He continues to show up in a few early Cell episodes before disappearing entirely. Good, because I want to slam my head down on my desk and weep over what a disaster they've made of continuity by choosing to include him. The worst part is that he really doesn't do anything beyond keeping Gohan from inhaling the Aqua Mist, which could have happened any number of ways, such as being underwater for a few seconds. After the first few episodes, he basically disappears anyway. We've spent the past 4 weeks talking about the Frieza arc, and I hope I've managed to make it clear that, more than ever, this filler arc had to be created. But I feel basing it on a movie was the most ill-advised, not to mention laziest direction they could have taken. I don't mean to crap on talented people who work hard for a living, and perhaps there's much more to this than I truly understand. But writing for animated Dragon Ball can't be that difficult, can it? We're talking about an adaptation that transcribes scenes and even dialogue mostly verbatim. Compared to creating a narrative from scratch, it's gotta be easier. But here's the rare chance they get an opportunity to flex their creative muscles and create their own Dragon Ball story. They had to have known it was coming. But instead of actually making a new story, they recycle one of their old stories. So they don't have to create a new villain and fill episodes with scenes that craft the villain and reveal the motivations. That's already there. Throw in some flashbacks. Well, frankly, that's not dissimilar to what Toriyama was doing at the same time, using an existing villain to bypass having to establish reasons behind an antagonist. But the motives behind its creation don't matter as long as a quality product is the result. Over the years, I've presented opinions that tend to stray from the majority consensus. However, when it comes to the Garlic Jr. arc, I largely conform. It's not that great. Well, I should clarify. The Garlic Jr. arc is two completely different things. It is the fight against Garlic Jr. It is also the story of Kuririn and his new girlfriend. The latter plotline bookends the former. I really enjoy the bookends, but everything in between is a chore for me. To be fair, it was less of a chore this watch through than it ever has been. Set up an exposition or thrown around, after that, it's fighting. And that wouldn't be so bad except that the fighting isn't terribly interesting. Gohan gets mad and kills a couple of henchmen. A couple of episodes later he gets mad and kills another couple of henchmen. Garlic Jr. opens the dead zone. Again. Gohan knocks him in. Again. There are a few elements of progression, but nothing to the extent of twists and distinct beats that make Toriyama's work so memorable and easy to follow. Here, I can never remember anything more than the broadest of strokes because it all blends together. The story and fighting are almost completely separate from one another. It's written exactly like a typical Dragon Ball Z movie. But in this case, the boring part isn't half an hour, it's 6 episodes. We haven't quite gotten to the Buu arc, but once again the TV staff beats Toriyama to the punch by staging a fight in the Heavenly Realm. That's a great idea. So why does it look so bland? One of the big advantages animated Dragon Ball typically has over Toriyama's Dragon Ball is in its locations. That the ruins of Garlic Jr.'s castle is where this arc begins is such a nice callback, but such a tease. Garlic Jr.'s movie contains some of the most creative locales and vibrant coloring of any Dragon Ball product. So how did they take as fascinating a location as God's Temple and make it boring? They've made it look cool in the past. Here it's all light blues and dark grays. Like the action, the visuals blend together. When they're in the palace, it's dark, but rather than being foreboding, it feels empty. Then the temple breaks and it's all bland, nondescript stone. There are only a few moments where the Makio planet gets close enough to provide an interesting backdrop. Oh yeah, the Makio planet. Like Goku and Piccolo before him, Garlic Jr. is now an alien. How original. He was able to get out of the dead zone because his planet, Makio, travels close to Earth every 5,000 years. Its proximity increases his power. I don't want to dismiss this out of hand. I suppose Makio could be another planet in the same solar system, and their particular orbits don't bring them near except every 5,000 years. But given that Toei were already probably devising the Big Getty star, I wouldn't be surprised if they also came up with the idea of this planet that flies around on its own. So Garlic Jr. and his ilk turn into aliens for no good reason. Actually, for no reason, period. Them being aliens contributes exactly nothing to the story. And before anyone says that the reason is because of the role of the Makio planet, remember that pretty much all arcane rituals involving celestial beings coming into alignment don't require the people involved to be from those planets. If you believe Mercury being in retrograde affects your life, it doesn't mean you're from the planet Mercury. Anyway, while that pointless retcon would normally bother me, here, despite all my complaining, I kinda like it. Because for me, it proves what I argued 4 years ago. You can be an alien and a demon at the same time. Because while Garlic in the movie talks about calling forth evil spirits, here he is stated to be Mazoku. The fact that Piccolo is or was Mazoku and they want him to join them is a major plot point. Once again, Piccolo is not an alien who was mistaken for a demon. He is an alien who was also a demon. Garlic Jr. is an alien who is also a demon. That said, demon clansmen are a bit odd here. The Aquamist, and boy, doesn't that sound like some kind of trendy 90s alcohol? Anyway, Garlic Sr.'s Aquamist, which God apparently keeps in his junk drawer, turns people into demons. But they act more like zombies. They're not demons like Garlic Jr. and Piccolo are demons. They're mindless monsters who bite people and turn them into demons. Piccolo gets bitten while performing his obligatory showing up to save Gohan moment, and becomes a slave to Garlic Jr. Eventually he bites Kuririn, and for a little while it seems like Gohan is completely alone. And I will give the story credit for that, it's genuinely tense. Then Piccolo reveals they were faking in order to save God and Popo. Fair enough, except that the series never bothers to explain how Piccolo faked it. Why didn't the bites do anything to him? He never explains why, he only ever says, "I'm not going to be beaten by that." That's not an answer. When I was covering the Frieza arc originally, I mentioned finding myself at a point where fan mistranslations made more sense than the real story in regards to wishing Kuririn's soul to Earth. I have the same problem here. Before I saw this episode in Japanese, I'd always read that the reason was that Piccolo's demonic nature rendered him immune. Except that's never said or intimated anywhere that I can see. I have no idea where that even came from. And now that I think about it, even if that is what was intended, that doesn't make a lot of sense either. Why would demons not know that demons have immunity against becoming demons? Maybe they thought that since Piccolo is no longer a demon, he no longer has that immunity? But they'd be right, he's not a demon anymore. So why does he still have that immunity? Explain, story, explain! I can accept that Piccolo and Kuririn can have the demon eyes and auras as artistic license. You know, barely, but I can live with it. But the concept doesn't even make any sense. As butchered as that concept is, what buoys it up is when you as the audience realize that Piccolo was constantly breaking free of his restraints to attack Gohan in order to keep the other bad guys from actually harming him. And in a series as devoid of subtlety as Dragon Ball often is, it never goes out of its way to explain that. See, that's an example of letting the subtext do the work. Piccolo's immunity to vampire demon zombies is an example of... who knows, just roll with it. Piccolo frees God and Popo because God being trapped limits Piccolo's power? So why was he fine with God in a jar before? Or is this one of those movie Vegeta, I didn't come here to save you, but I totally did anyway speeches? But God is in a jar again? What other concepts can we dust off? Well, you know what the solution to the Aquamist is? The Cho Shinsui. Yes, the Cho Shinsui. Apparently, the same super god water that acts as a deadly poison unless it draws out your hidden potential can also turn demon zombies into not demon zombies if it's inhaled. Boy, it can do it all, can't it? But let's hope it doesn't kill everybody it's trying to save. Why does God have it anyway? Isn't it supposed to be Carding's? Oh wait, that doesn't apply to the animated continuity, so it makes even less sense. And why is it in the same kind of ornate jug as the Cho Seisui? How did Garlic Jr. and his henchmen even get to the Heavenly Realm? In that movie they tried to kill Piccolo to get at God, presumably because God was safe in his temple. But are you trying to tell me that every time God goes anywhere else, it's the equivalent of leaving the front door open and unlocked? I don't get this story. What praise I do here in regards to this arc is how it is completely free of Goku. The other characters have to get by without any hope of him showing up at the last second. Gohan is the star, he defeats the bad guy. And it could be said that it unintentionally foreshadows Gohan's role at the end of the Cell arc. I can't argue against that. It is nice to see. Good for them. Although in regards to the Cell games, I do have to point out that Gohan has no issue murdering these people. And I sure hope no one lives on planet Makio, otherwise Gohan just committed genocide. Piccolo and Kuririn choosing to leave the protection of Gohan's barrier, which is a thing he can do I guess, so that Gohan will have no reason not to lower it and attack Garlic, makes for a memorable climax. But I can't help but feel it plays the characters a little too safely. Gohan, Kuririn, and Piccolo. This really is an extended Dragon Ball Z movie minus Goku, isn't it? The gang's finally back together again. But you'd barely know it. Tenshinhan and Chaozu? They're not in this. Yamcha? He is, but he, like the rest of the cast, is quickly turned into a zombie and not seen again until the end. So we're left with the same trio that was standing around watching things the last arc, the same trio that fended off Nappa in the Saiyan arc. Could we not have played around with the roster at all? I've seen enough Gohan, Kuririn, and Piccolo to last me a lifetime. Do something different! Actually, the most interesting idea, even more so than Piccolo becoming a demonic zombie, is that it gives God and Popo something to do. Once they're rescued, they head into the Shinsenkai, or God Sage realm, where the spirits of the previous gods reside, in order to disperse the Choshinsui. You'd think there'd be a more convenient place to access the air currents of Earth than the resting place of all the previous gods. They don't tend to like visitors, especially not the current god. This is a really cool idea. We get to find out more about the system of divinity on Earth. We see previous gods, we explore a new ethereal plane. Unfortunately, while it looks more interesting than what we see in the fighting sections, although some areas are rather chintzy, what's done with it isn't. The previous gods have no personality or even distinct appearances. Remember that the whole impetus of Garlic Jr.'s story ties directly into God's most recent predecessor. He's the one who chose the Green Man over Garlic Sr. Wouldn't it be interesting to get his perspective and insight into this situation? Maybe he could divulge some critical secret, teach God some hidden skill? No. The Shinsenkai is just a generic roadblock, and the old gods are gonna go with the zappy zap until they arbitrarily decide to stop. All the while God hems and haws over how much he loves the Earth. It's a far cry from his valiant stand in the movie. Oh, and I hope you like these two shots. That's all you're ever going to remember about this because they're looped about 1,000 times. I suppose that's enough about that, though. After all, there's a whole other story here, one I find much more enjoyable. We get one of those ever so rare glimpses into the characters' personal lives, what they're doing when they're not hopping around the world on adventures or fighting for their lives. In fact, it's the first time we see anything approaching a normal day for Gohan. That we get another visit from good old Saber Tiger reminds us both how far Gohan has developed as a character and how much he's begun to take after his dad. Chi-Chi is still pretty obnoxious, but I can get behind why she wouldn't be that keen for her 5-year-old to join the all-adult party. Granted, as much as the story insists he's 5, he should really be 6 by now. And while there are many disparate characters and gatherings with their own impetuses, all of the non-garlic material connect through the introduction of Kuririn's new girlfriend, Maron. See, since the Kuri in Kuririn is Japanese for chestnut, you shouldn't be surprised his girlfriend's name is French for the same thing. However, Kuririn should realize that authorial mandate for themed naming conventions does not necessarily make for a good couple. She's obviously all wrong for him, and since this is filler, it's obviously not going anywhere. However, a poor relationship does not necessarily make for a bad character or story. In fact, it's often the opposite. And Maron is great fun to have around. I don't think I realized why until just now. Maron is Mr. Satan before Mr. Satan existed. As an outsider and more than a little dim, she exists as the perfect lens through which to view and deconstruct Dragon Ball. Why are you hanging out with a 5, 6-year-old kid? Why is this sage a big cat? What kinds of friends are these anyway? Who is this Goku guy, and why am I supposed to care so much about him or even remember who he is? Maron takes what would be the designated leisure activity of the film, arc, and turns it into something unique and fun. Here's someone who's not afraid to stand up to Chi-Chi. Karin resorts to betting the magic bell in Nyoibo in a round of strip poker. Kuririn dabbles at being a well-dressed sports car driving playboy. Throwing in a wild card, so to speak, allows us to view the characters in new ways. The more she disrupts the group dynamic with her airhead behavior or thong swimsuit or random flirtation or treating Karin like a typical cat or calling Kuririn Kurin-chan, the better she is. Some of that results in hackneyed storytelling. We get the Muten Roshi as a pervert jokes, Chi-Chi is terrifying and violent, Karin and Yajirobe can't stand up to Maron because she's a pretty lady and their blood flow is moving in the wrong direction. But I'd still say she far more often contributes a hilariously fresh perspective to a far too insular group. It's just a shame that story doesn't mesh at all with what's supposed to be the main plot. While her interactions with Kuririn and Yajirobe are occasionally funny, it feels far more as if the writers couldn't think of anything to do with her once the fighting started other than drop her off to be babysat. And as soon as Garlic Jr. is defeated, suddenly that plot can be resumed. The whole thing feels completely disjointed. The best parts of the Garlic Jr. elements are the few moments in the beginning where the plots organically converge. Gohan, Kuririn, Maron, and Higher Dragon defending against the assault of their brainwashed friends before they understand what's happened hits all the right spots. It's unsettling, it's funny, there are genuine stakes and tension. For a while, they honestly believe Chi-Chi is angry about Gohan sneaking off. That's interesting. For a child, the whole concept of being betrayed by a parent is nightmare-inducing. It's almost literally the only combat in this arc I ever remember. I'd much rather they'd have stuck around as Garlic Jr.'s henchmen as opposed to the generic-as-hell 4 monarchs. It so makes me wish more of this arc had been this, instead of this. Even the last episode feels disjointed from the rest of the arc. In fact, it might as well be a standalone episode, as it not only has nothing to do with the Garlic Jr. stuff, but it pretty much repeats all the beats from the beginning. Another party? Maron hits on Yamcha? Muten Roshi hits on Maron? Maron infuriates Bluma and Chi-Chi by calling them aunties? In addition, we get the hackneyed "women be shopping" and impossibly tall stack of packages gags before movie 7 reuses them. And for some reason, Yamcha's hair length changes from scene to scene. But ignoring everything else that came before it, it's one of my favorite episodes. You know, forget the rest of this arc, just give me this one episode. It's certainly one of the most atypical Dragon Ball Z episodes, from its title ripping off a popular Japanese drama miniseries, to its surprising focus on the sea turtle, to its complete lack of any external threat. Instead, it's about Kuririn mistakenly believing that Maron wants to marry him, and his quest to prove himself worthy of that by retrieving a giant pearl. At the same time, everyone is called back to Kame House because of an emergency that ends up being the sea turtle's 1000th birthday. And quite frankly, Bluma and Chi-Chi are absolutely horrid when they find out the reason they were called here. How heartless can you be? It's his flippin' birthday! Look how cute he is trying to blow out his candles! I'm not sure why Kuririn invites the 6-year-old kid to tag along rather than one of his best friends of over a decade, but Gohan and Kuririn go diving to find the mermaid's tear while Yamcha is left behind. When they find it after 5 minutes of searching, they realize they can't take it because it would make the fish upset. For some reason, this causes Kuririn to realize he's not worthy of Maron. He breaks up with her, she admits she wouldn't mind marrying him, but in the 5 seconds it takes him to turn around, she's already run off with another man. It's a fairly bittersweet way to end a Dragon Ball story, with Kuririn claiming to his friends that he dumped her because he can't bear to admit the ridiculous and heartbreaking truth. You know, it's easy to blame Maron for being fickle, but upon watching the episode this time, I sympathize a bit more with her. Everyone is forcing her into this role she never expressed any interest in. Her boyfriend leaves her alone with these uptight jerks who keep insisting she has to behave a certain way, and those are the ones who aren't straight up molesting her. Sure, she's dumb as a stump, but I'm amazed she didn't leave him while he was out looking for that stupid pearl. Anyway, that's the Garlic Jr. arc. It's for good at... Oh wait, Vegeta does stuff too. He looks for Goku, he doesn't find him, or does he? He kills people, his armor is intact for some reason. Apparently he's on the planet Lit at one point, which is supposed to be home to the people the small Gohan and Kuririn armor were made for. They don't look little. I have nothing else to say about this. It's not bad, but it goes where you expect it to. Nowhere. Anyway, that's the Garlic Jr. arc. It's 4 good episodes surrounded mostly by uninspired crap. That's not an abysmal ratio, but I feel it could have done more. Either make the fighting more diverse, or trim it down and add more story. As it is, it stands as a unique brand of torture. A Dragon Ball Z movie stretched out over 2 months. But despite its slew of reused elements and continuity-straining inclusions, it did what it set out to do. Buy the manga 10 weeks without a TV series breathing down its neck. And so, animated Dragon Ball lived to fight another day. That's it for Dragon Ball Dissection December this year. Remember that if you want to know more about Dragon Ball, keep kanzenshuu.com in your bookmarks. It is the most authoritative Dragon Ball fan site, and Dragon Ball Dissection would not be possible without it. Seriously. Thank you everyone for watching and for supporting the channel. This has legitimately been a very difficult year for me, as well as a year of tremendous growth and change. Thank you all for sticking by me. While I launched my Patreon this year in an attempt to make the channel self-sustaining, the sudden loss of my mother threw me something of a curveball. So while I can hopefully still make that a reality, maybe even sooner than I thought, for now, it's kept me afloat. Having to keep up with all of her bills in addition to all of my bills has been stressful to say the least, but you guys have kept me from going under. All of you have. The names you see here, the names you don't, all of you who tune in to watch. You really don't know how much I appreciate every single one of you. I hope you've had a wonderful, entertaining December, and I can't wait to see you in the new year. And yes, when Dragon Ball Dissection returns, it will be with the Majin Buu arc.